The text is extremely condensed and it has a lot to look at and a lot of surprises also. Before we start unpacking the text and diving into the depth of those words of St. Mark, there are a couple of remarks that we need to look at, which can help us in the process of unfolding. First of all, it's very interesting that when a criminal at that time was forced to carry the cross, their own cross, they carried only the horizontal piece of the cross. So they didn't carry the whole cross, because the vertical piece would be already fixed in the place where the crucifixion was going to take place. And so it's easier when the criminal arrives at the place of the crucifixion, they fix them on the horizontal, and then they raise it to meet the vertical, and then they fix the feet. So Jesus was forced to carry the horizontal piece of the cross, and of course Simon carried that piece for Jesus, which is another story, and that has some reflections also. We need also to understand that once the criminal carried the cross, or carried this piece, the horizontal piece of the cross, no one can save their life. Not even the emperor. So that's it. Once you carry the cross, that's it. So that takes us, of course, to Jesus' teaching. When he was with his disciples, when he said to the disciples, if you want to be my disciples, you deny yourself, you carry your cross and follow me. And this text has a lot of implications, because once we decide to carry the cross, that's it. It's a lifelong decision. And we cannot do two things. First of all, we cannot defend ourselves. That's it. Our life is not anymore ours. And second, no one else could defend us, because the statement would be final. And we see that in Mark chapter 8. Mark, as we said before, that we need, wearing the spectacles of the cross and the passion of Christ, we read the whole gospel and we go back and forth to understand those bits from the first chapter to the last chapter. It's all makes sense only when we reach to this climax of the cross. And that's in chapter 8, Jesus was teaching his disciples about Easter. He was giving them the mind of Easter. And Peter, as Peter is or was, Peter was passionate and impulsive, and he did not accept to believe that Jesus had to die. He refused in his mind this teaching, and the implication was enormous, because the result of that, he denied Christ, because he did not trust the mind of Easter, and he did not think or see that he should not have defended himself. When he was asked if he was associated with Christ, he chose himself. So, and he refused to believe. And then on the top of that, he rebuked Christ for saying that he had to die. Not even didn't believe Jesus, he rebuked Jesus for saying that he had to die. And in Mark 8, verses 31 to 33, he then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Immediately, I want to take you to the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus said to the disciples, "Wake up, the flesh is weak." So our concerns are always, as human beings, to defend ourselves. We are always concerned how to justify ourselves in the eyes of the society, in the eyes of others. And Jesus is telling us that that is not the mind of Easter. Peter fell and failed in the trial. Jesus couldn't defend himself because the sentence was prepared before, and Jesus was given to be crucified. What happened? The day of the crucifixion, according to Mark, is divided into 3 stages. The cross has 3 periods. The first period is loud, very loud. The first period is the morning, when they were taking him to the Golgotha, where the place where the crucifixion took place. And there was a lot of noise. They were shouting at him, screaming at him. Even the Pharisees, the law, the teachers of the law, because the disappointment was great. Because he was not, or he did not turn to be the king they expected. So he fell in a big way, Jesus, and they were very loud in abusing him and in attacking him severely. So that was over 3 hours of that abuse and that screaming and shouting at him and insulting him and humiliating him. Then we have the second period. The second period was when the darkness arrived. What happened here? Darkness arrived, and no more voices for Mark. No more noise. As if we are watching a movie and the camera turned from the crowd and the insults and the humiliation of Jesus. Suddenly, everything disappears and fades to the background. And this strange darkness appears. And for Mark, and only for Mark, this darkness has no connection with anything. For Luke and for Matthew, they link it to some kind of cosmic events with the sun and with the earthquakes. And Mark doesn't even try to justify it or to link it to anything, because he wanted to say something through this darkness. So they wanted to crucify him and humiliate him. And Mark pushes everybody to the background. And Jesus becomes on his own on the cross with this darkness. So, why? The only way we can see and understand this darkness is through the first cry of Jesus. Jesus cries in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? Stay there and slowly go with me to the baptism. In the baptism, the reader, we, you and I, and Jesus, we hear the voice coming from heaven, declaring the identity of Jesus, declaring, this is my son, right? Now, let's move on to the mountain of the transfiguration. At the mountain of the transfiguration, the reader, you and I, Jesus and the disciples, hear the affirmation of God the Father, declaring again, this is my son that I was pleased. I mean, the Father was pleased with this son, and he ordered us to listen to him. It's an order, it's a commandment, it's what the Father wills, that we listen. And that order did not sink for Peter. Although the Father said to Peter, listen to him, Peter, no, rebuked Jesus. So, from the baptism, going to the transfiguration, listening to God confirming and affirming the identity of Jesus, back to where we left, the cross and the darkness. So Jesus and us, you and I, the hearer, we are waiting for a reaction from the Father. No reaction. Silence. Complete silence. And this silence lasted for 3 hours. 3 long, enormously long hours. Jesus waiting for a word of encouragement, a word of love, a word of affirmation, a reaction from the Father. Nothing. The cry tells us that Jesus felt the presence of the Father, but he couldn't reach him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have even cried. He felt in that darkness the presence of the Father, suffering with him, being with him, but silent. What on earth is happening? Why are you silent? I heard you on the baptism. I heard you on the transfiguration. And now, when I most badly, desperately need you, where are you? 3 hours of silence. Let's go back a little bit to the Garden of Gethsemane. At the garden, Jesus was, as we said before, sincere. He opened his heart to the Father and said, I don't want to die. He was honest. He defended he tried to defend his life. He tried to choose his life. The Father listened, but no reaction. When Jesus left Gethsemane and was arrested, Jesus made a final decision. That decision was to obey the Father totally. And this total obedience that led him to the cross, as St. Paul says, he was obedient to death, the death of the cross. That obedience, which took him to the cross. And in this silence of 3 hours, he kept being the Son of God, the Son of Man, the Son, the man God, and the God-man. He did not lose faith in the Father. In this sincerity of the cry, where are you? Why have you abandoned me? Even that, and in that, we see the perfection of Jesus's faith. The faith of Jesus was shown in a perfect way, that even in that cry, in this sincerity of the heart of Jesus, where are you? He did not doubt his sonship or the relationship. Actually, if he doubted, or if he didn't believe in this relationship, he would have got angry. He would have cursed. he would have asked the Father to leave him, or to he would have broken the relationship, but he did not. He only cried and expressed his desperation. Even though with this cry, no answer. The Father is there. Let's move the camera, but not to look at the Father, but to see the scene from the Father's eyes. The Father was watching the Son dying. The Father was suffering with the Son, but he wanted the Son to face this experience alone. He wanted to tell us to be like Jesus, that when we feel as if we were abandoned, we are not abandoned. Well, it would have been easier, of course, for Christ, for Jesus, to have heard a word of encouragement, love, if a voice had come from the darkness, said, I love you, I am here for you, take heart. But Jesus was looking for that in himself and didn't find it, but he felt the presence of the Father. I want to raise an issue here. We all have seen the film The Passion of the Christ for Mel Gibson, and we were incredibly moved by the severity of the torture. But that was the cross. The cross is a messy business, and a sentence which had always that torture and that pain. And in our modern lives, many people around the world suffered physically more than Christ. Think about the napalm bombs or the phosphoric bombs in the Second World War. The torture of the cross, we think that he withstood the torture of the cross, which goes beyond any torture. No. The bodily and the physical torture is not the point of the suffering, the only point of the suffering of Jesus. The unique suffering of Jesus is the silence of the Father. Is this feeling of abandonment. When he crushed over this incredibly incomprehensible silence. The Father wanted us to see the Son who is capable of confronting the cross and confronting the evil of humanity on his own. We need that for our salvation. We need that love. And in the silence of the Father and in the agony of the Son, The love of God is complete for us to have the salvation. And then comes the second cry. The second cry breaks in the mouth of Jesus and doesn't go out. And we don't know what that would have been. We see there is something very interesting. As the Father confirmed the identity of the Son in the baptism and did the same on the Mount of Transfiguration, we see a different scene at the cross as we see this Roman centurion, a pagan, representing all of us, all humanity, at the feet of the cross, looking how Jesus died, how Jesus did not get angry or he screamed blasphemy or he cursed. He died in dignity. He died as an innocent man crying for God. He said, for all of us, generation after generation, in the name of humanity, he looked at the cross and said, this is indeed the Son of God. God confirmed Jesus' identity twice, but at the cross, in the silence of God, a pagan, a Roman, spoke on behalf of the whole humanity and declared and affirmed and confirmed the identity of Jesus Christ again as the Son of God. This is amazing. We need to realize that on the cross, wherever the Son is, the Father is present. And that is significant for our Christian faith. If we believe that Jesus Christ is with us, then the Father is with us. He remained the Son despite that he died alone, without any support, without any comfort. Now, when we trust the words of Jesus, not like Peter, when we believe what Jesus says, we do not suffer the silence of God, because we believe that Jesus is with us and the Father is with us. In the business of Christmas and the incarnation and God becoming human, which is incredible, amazing, fantastic, we shouldn't lose our focus on the cross, which is in the heart of the manger. And Jesus was the Son of Man who forgave sins because he was God. And God revealed his identity, that Jesus was his Son. And Jesus chose, as we said last time, he chose the title, the Son of Man, because of his belonging to humanity. Jesus remained in the relationship with God the Father, even when he did not understand what was going on around him, even when he thought he was abandoned. The cross for us is the sign of that encounter between the Son and the Father, the suffering of the Son, and the desperation and the suffering of the Father in his silence. So how do we face the cross today? How do we understand it today? Well, St. Luke says in his narrative of the Gospel, chapter 9, verse 23, then he said to them all, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow him. St. Mark dropped daily. Why? Because for Mark, carrying the cross is not about facing everyday problems like Luke. When we live every day, we face difficulties every day, we remember that we are in union with the crucified Christ. But for Mark is more existential, more radical. No daily. You carry your cross in the sense of you take the decision to carry your cross. And once you carry your cross, that's it. Don't defend yourself. And then Mark chapter 10, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. This is the mind of Easter. If we want to defend our lives and to choose our lives, we lose it eternally. If we choose to surrender our lives to the Father in service, if we choose not to defend our lives, if we choose Jesus Christ over against ourselves, then we save it eternally. It's a matter of decision. It's a matter of lifestyle. It's a matter how we face life in listening carefully, communicating, and Mark is incredibly Trinitarian. The Christology, our understanding of Christ is linked essentially with the Father, because wherever the Son is, the Father is there. And that the power of that union in the Spirit, we have the strength to face life. We have the strength to take that decision to be Christians. It means to be less religious and more Christ-like. And that's what the church needs. The church needs us to be less religious, more Christ-like. And the more religious we are, the less faith we have. Because we are too busy with the religious affairs. And the less religious we are, the more energy and time and effort we have to form and reform ourselves to be the image of God and Christ in the world. And in that way, we can say with Christ, we are here not to be served, but to serve and to give our lives for others. Because no greater love than that, to give our lives for others. Because God so loved the world that he gave his only son, so that we don't die, but live eternally, because we choose not to defend our lives here in this world. Amen.